Let's start with the first chapter of Design of Steel Structures. First unit, Fundamental of Steel Structures, which is having weightage of 6 marks. Course outcome. Course outcome of this chapter 1 is use steel table and IS code 800-2007 at work sites. So the outcome of this topic will be how to use steel table and IS code regarding to the steel and RCC also. The steel table which is used in steel structures, design of steel structures, is 800-2007 at work site. So let's see the basics of steel structures. Basically, steel is most popular and effective building material. Nowadays steel is most popular. Steel in especially civil engineering structures. Lots of structures are being made by steel structures, especially bridges, different workshops. The popularity of steel is being increasing nowadays. Steel is an alloy made by combining iron and other elements, the most common of these being carbon. So basically steel is a alloy which is a combination of iron and a different percentage of carbon, which gives different types of steel again according to the variation of percentage of carbon content. Wrought iron is one of major type in which carbon content is not greater than 0.15%. That is, wrought iron contains least carbon percentage among the steel types. Wrought iron is having percentage of carbon only 0.15%. Another one is pure steel. Pure steel content, carbon content is in between the range of 0.15% to 1.5% only. And last one is cast iron. Cast iron content percentage of carbon is 2 to 4%, which is most from above types. Cast iron is having percentage of carbon is 2% to 4%. Let's see the advantages and disadvantages of the steel. Being a steel is very common use in the civil engineering structures nowadays. Therefore, steel is having lots of advantages. That's why its use is very much increasing nowadays. There are lots of advantages. Let's see. Steel being a ductile material. Steel is having very high ductility property. As it is having ductile material, it does not fail suddenly. It gives visible evidence of impending failure. It has high ratio of strength to weight, making it to use for the construction of long span bridges, tall buildings, as I have already mentioned. Especially steel is having high strength to weight ratio. That means for small cross sectional area, steel can resist lots of weight. That's why it is used for making large structures, and it is useful for long span bridges, tall buildings, etc. Steel can be transported, fabricated, and erected at site, thus saves time of construction and saves expenses also. As steel can be easily transported, it can be easily fabricated and erected at site. It can be molded in any shape, erected, and it can be fabricated in any shape. That's why steel is very economical material, and it is easy to use at construction site. Steel as construction material has good earthquake resistor capacity due to its ductility and elastic property. As the steel has high ductile material, it is nowadays very much in its use is very much increasing for making good earthquake resisting structures. Lots of structures nowadays need to be earthquake resisting structures, and where steel is can be easily used. The steel structures can be dismantled and reused wherever required. This is also a very important advantage, that it can be easily dismantled, and it can be easily reused wherever required. That's why steel is has having very much use nowadays. It can be recycled easily. Steel can be recycled easily after the any use. It can be also recycled. Steel has high scrap value amongst all building materials. Steel is having high scrap value. That means scrap value is the value of the material which is after being used. After the any type of use, the scrap value is the value, and that is the highest value in case of steel structures. Steel is a gas resistance also. It is a gas resisting materials. And some disadvantages of steel. Disadvantages of steel are: steel structures are subjected to corrosion, hence requires frequent painting. When the steel structures comes into the contact of moisture, they generally gets corroded, and therefore they required painting after some interval of time, and this is a main disadvantage of steel. Steel structures requires fireproof treatment, which increases the cost. For fireproof treatment, generally it requires additional cost for fireproofing treatment, and that's why it increases the cost of whole structure. Steel is costly material, as we know that among the other types of building material, steel is having very much high cost, and that's why it increases the total amount of structure. Steel is for construction of steel structures, especially it is used for bridges, for high-rise buildings, and therefore it requires very much skilled labor for the fabrication and erection of the steel structures. These are the some basics about steel structure. These are some advantages and disadvantages of steel structure. We will see next part in the next lecture. So thank you so much.